Welcome to the Superhero Sidekick Leadership Coaching Podcast with Joel Smith and Joe Baker. We're here to help you develop your superpowers. This is the Superhero Sidekick Coaching Podcast. I'm Joel Smith.
I'm Joe Baker. We're not here to be the superhero. We just want to be your sidekick and help you along in building your business, building your not-for-profit. Let's help you grow it fast and really scale.
Be sure to check us out on Facebook and visit us at superherosidekick.com. This is the Superhero Sidekick Coaching Podcast. I'm Joel Smith, and with me is Joe Baker. Joe, how's it going today?
Hey, it's going good.
Excellent. Yeah. Hey, so we would love for you guys to comment and give us some good feedback and subscribe to this podcast so that you can hear this each and every week and get some reminders. So that would be cool. Hey, Joe, we've got a pretty exciting topic today that we're talking about. You and I have been kind of giddy talking about this stuff because we get all geeked out when we start talking about business and all of that. But it's just you and I today, no guest. So I think we can pull this off. So Joe, why don't you kick it off here? Why don't you tell everybody kind of what we're talking about? I know that you've read a book and it kind of sparked this.
Yeah, so it's a book I read a long time ago, but it's always just been like one of the elementary books of business. It's a book called Cashflow Quadrants by Robert Kiyosoki. It's kind of like, you know, this is like junior high math that then builds up into calculus, you know. But this is one of the elementary ones. But it basically lays out the difference between employees, self-employed people, business owners, and investors, and kind of begins to look at like how each of them think very differently. And in a lot of ways, you know, you see that 95% of the population is these employees and these self-employed people, you know, and 5% of the population is these business owners and investors. And the rich category of people is always in the business owners and the investor side. And a lot of the population just has never even noticed the difference. And what's unique about America is that in America, anybody can move from the left side to the right side. And if you just kind of do the things that you're supposed to do, you can very quickly develop wealth. And as far as the world goes, becoming a millionaire is actually easy in America. You know, it's actually very easy, you know, and only reason most people don't become millionaires is because it's also easy not to become a millionaire.
Sure.
But hard is becoming a millionaire in Russia or Ukraine. Even in Mexico, it could be hard to become a millionaire. But in the US, you can very easily move from the left side of these quadrants, the employee or the self-employed, to becoming a business owner and investor. And really that's the difference, going from poor middle class to wealth.
Right. Hey, Joe, I want to take a second real quick and just kind of help our listeners kind of understand what we're talking about when we talk about the left side and the right side. So if you were to create, four boxes, kind of a plus in the middle of a piece of paper, and you got the left side and the right side. On the left side at the top, you've got the employees. So you've got a person that's an employee. They work for someone else. And then if you look at the quadrant right below that, we'll call that the self-employed. This is a person that has their own business, but really they are the business. And then we switch over to the right side. Then we've got at the top, that top quadrant is the business owners. So these are people that not only are they self-employed, but they actually own a business and they reside kind of outside of their business and they oversee their business as opposed to being the business themselves. And then that lower quadrant on the right side would be the investor. And of course, this is the granddaddy of them all. This is where people like to get to, because when you get to this point, your money makes money for you. So what you're saying, Joe, is that the majority of people are on this left side. They're either employees or they're just self-employed. So they have essentially bought themselves a job, right? And but people can move from that left quadrant over into the right quadrant. So let's talk about that. Let's dig in a little bit more.
Yeah, a lot of people who think they're starting a business actually end up moving from employee to self-employed. And there are some advantages to being self-employed. There's some significant tax advantages, because when you're self-employed, now you can literally write everything off, you know, which is a great, you know, asset for you to be able to do, you know, because now you're entering the business world, but you're still just trading time for money. And what rich people do is they don't trade time for money. They actually build systems and processes that make money while they sleep. They create processes and pipelines where just literally while they're, sleeping at night, sales are going through. They don't trade time for money, and even if you can make a lot, even if you can make 200, 300, $400 an hour, like you're still limited on the amount of hours you have with as an employee or as self-employed. Whereas as a business owner or investor, you are unlimited in what you can do.
Right. Yeah. So, and we were talking before the show began too. We put some other words to each one of these too. With employees, really, this is a repetitious type of a process. You work for someone else. You come to work and you do something. You come to work the next day and you do something. You get a paycheck every couple of weeks, and then a couple of weeks later you get another paycheck. So it's kind of the same thing. You keep doing the same thing over and over for this. Not that you can't change, get promotions, get better at things. Not that you can't kind of grow a little bit, but it's a repetitious type thing. And then when you move into the self-employed, that's a little bit different. Now you're employed by yourself, and you have a little bit more freedom than you did as an employee because you get to say so. You get to open up a second lemonade stand if you'd like, or you can hire another person to add to you so that you're the owner, but now you've got a sidekick that can come in and help you. So that this is more of addition. So the employee is repetition, then the self-employed is addition. So you can add, but really you can't do anything more than add. And then you move it over to the right side with the business owners, and now at least you can multiply. If you're a multi-unit owner of something, you can keep adding more units. You can keep multiplying, and you can multiply yourself even in that way. But even that, just that multiplication, that still has its limitations. And then you move into the investment stage, and the investment stage not only can it multiply, but it multiplies exponentially, or at least potentially it can. So it can keep growing and growing exponentially, which none of the others can. So that's kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah, yeah. That's the goal, is to get to become an investor.
Yeah. So what's the difference, Joe, in the mindsets? You mentioned mindset earlier, the way people think. You mentioned that a lot of people don't really understand the difference between any of these. So how do you move through these quadrants?
Yeah, ultimately, if you want to go from poor to rich, you have to change the way you think. And when I first heard that, it seemed weird. It seemed odd. It seemed like, yeah, actually, it seemed like people who say that don't understand poverty, but really, the people that say that actually do. People like Dave Ramsey and people like that, they teach you start thinking a different way, you start acting a different way, and suddenly you find yourself rich. It's not magic that, it's that the rich are rich. Like, I don't know any rich people that got rich by winning a lottery tickets. That's not how people get rich. Actually, that's how most people get poor, is buying lottery tickets. And there's lots of people that get poor buying lottery tickets. But the way to become rich is to become a business owner in America, where it's easy, and build a legit business, or become a business owner and then an investor. Have you seen the show yet? The Undercover Billionaire. You watched that yet, Joel?
I have not seen it yet. No,
Have you
you've
heard
told me
about it?
about it.
Oh yeah.
You told me about it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a crazy show where this a set of billionaires, they take a bet, and they're dropped off in a city that they've never been. It's a depressed city, and basically they're given a piece of junk truck. They're given a cell phone with no contacts in it. They're not allowed to reach out to anyone they've ever met. Basically a bag of their own clothes, and lastly they're given $100, and they have 90 days to build $1 million business. And what's amazing is, when you watch it, is that all of them do it. Every single one of these people who do this show do it. And one of them, Grant Cardone, even though like 45 days in, he has almost, like, he's only has relationships at that point in the show, and like really there's no business materialized. But at the end of this show, he has a $5.5 million business. And it's like, when you watch that show, you can actually learn and see how they think, see what they do. And what none of them do, none of them go out and just, go to college and try to get a degree and try to get a better job. None of them do that, because that's not how you become a millionaire. all of them enter into building a business. And it literally in 90 days, you see these people take $100 and turn it into $1 million business. And so it's not magic. It's just some people are really good at it. Some people have a knack for it. Some people have developed the skills for it. But anybody can actually do it in America.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely see how people on that show and people that really do uh, really stretch themselves and create an empire, they really do have a different way of thinking, no doubt. There's a whole different mindset, a whole different way of thinking. And if we look at this left side of the page, particularly the employee stage, this is really kind of a place of survival, don't you think? The mindset is I've got to make enough to pay my bills so that I can eat and I can have a place to live and I can have transportation and a little bit of fun on the side. And so it's really about kind of a just enough type thinking. I need just
Mm-hmm.
enough to get by.
You
And
know,
yep.
and I don't want to say either, like, for people out there that are in the left quadrants, it's like those are required to get you to the other side. So because we don't, yeah, and you even see that in the show, in the undercover billionaire show, is the first thing they do is they set a budget, and the guy says the first day is like, he's like, for me to live, I need to make, it's like something like $1,200 a month. And so it's just most people, you know, that most people couldn't live on that. But this billionaire says I at the lowest amount is $1,200 a month. So he has to find a way, either an employee or self-employed, to make that $1,200 a month. And once he gets that, now he can spend all of his time on the right side of the quadrants and start building a business and getting all the talent and getting other people, inspired and working on his team, and getting them incentivized to build the business as well. And so it's so for the people who are on the left quadrants, employee or self-employed, like, you're going to need that to get across. But one of the things you have to do is you have to limit your expenses. You have to way cut back. You have to go back to ramen noodles in some areas, because every dollar that you spend, buying video games or streaming shows or whatever you're spending extra money on, every dollar that you're spending over there is money that you're robbing from the business opportunities on the right side, or the investor opportunities on the right quadrants.
Right. It's almost like sometimes when we're going through this stage, this employee stage, whether we're teenagers or whether we're adults or wherever we're at, we tend to invest in now. The video games and sometimes it's nicer cars, or sometimes you see even sometimes you'll even see neighborhoods, people that live in a nice neighborhood, they drive nice cars, but they're still employees and they're still spending as much as they make. And so
Mm-hmm.
they may have, credit card debt and all kinds of other things. And so the facade that you see isn't real. It's not
Yeah,
that
yeah,
they've invested in all of this and they own any of this in a lot of
yeah,
ways. And so sometimes it's because we all invest. It's just a matter of whether we're going to invest in ourselves or something bigger and better than ourselves, or we're going to invest in later, or if we're just going to invest in now, or if we're going to invest in something that heals, or something that's fun. So we all
yeah, yeah.
invest. So yeah, that's good. And so, what do you think, Joe? Moving from the employee stage to the self-employed, what's the advantages of that, moving to that place?
Really, there's just a few advantages. One is that, like, you have tremendous tax advantages, and so whereas when you're an employee, your boss basically takes out all the taxes for you. They just pull it right out. Whereas now that you're self-employed, you can actually write off all of your travel, anything that's even closely related to your business, you can begin to write off, and you get some really good advantages there. So you're able to make more money, and integrate your life with your business and have more control. But most people who move from employee to self-employed, it's kind of like they say, I smashed my alarm clock. I don't have to get up, early anymore. But they go from working 40 hours a week to working like 90, because, and they go from working for $20 an hour to be working like 5 or 6 when they really figure out their hours, of what they're worth. Um, and so it's usually the employee to self-employed. It's an opportunity to learn and grow and become a business owner, but the goal has to become not to become self-employed, but to escape the business. And when you escape the business, that's when you become a business owner. You're not working in the business, you're working on the business. Instead of you being the guy making every pizza, now you've built a whole team and processes to make the pizzas. And really you're just now when you become a business owner, you're just there to make decisions. You're not even there to work anymore. That's not what your job is. Your job is to make great decisions. And you want to build systems so you can escape being self-employed.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. But there is a transition. You got to go through that self-employed place to, to the business owner. And, I can, I can relate to that too. I guess I was a business owner and self-employed for a while because I was still in the business. I was still in it, and it was a job because I was doing it. And I was working really hard, and but I wasn't focusing on investments. I wasn't focusing on building the business necessarily. I was still focused on survival. And then once I kind of got through the survival phase and got to pull my head out of the sand and jump out of the business and start working on it, well, then everything changed, and the whole business got better because things that didn't get paid attention to was now getting paid attention to, whether it be financial or leadership wise, or growing the business down the road, taking advantage of opportunities and tweaking numbers and making the business more profitable, and being able to take that time to really examine the business with a magnifying glass. You can't do that if you're self-employed and you're just in it. We call that in our company, we call that having your face in the cheese. All you see is what
Good.
you're doing. You can't even see what's going on around you because you're just buried in the work you're doing. So,
It's buried in the cheese.
yep,
That's
that's
funny.
right.
Yeah.
But there is something really terrific that happens, Joe, when you get to that point where you are a business owner and you're not owned by the business. And it certainly can feel like you're owned by the business, both when you're an employee and when you're self-employed. But there's something magical about that when you get that freedom. So talk about that for a second. What do you see with the freedom of that?
Well, it's important to identify too that employees and self-employed people, their mission in the language they use is for safety. They want security. Like employees always ask, like, what are my benefits? What's the 401k like? What's the healthcare like? Things like that. Like they're always thinking about that. Business people aren't thinking about that. They're actually thinking about financial freedom. They're actually trying to figure out like, how do I create tremendous cash flow? It's like, they don't want to make, 10 grand a month, like off a business, or they want to make 10 grand a month as an employee. They want to make, 10 grand a month off a business that then they can scale to 100 grand a month, and then to, you know, 500 grand a month. I mean, that's the way they think, and even if you can build a business that can passively create you 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 grand a month, it really sets you free to just keep investing and keep building other businesses. And think of them as pipelines, which we'll talk about in the next session. Is you can always build another pipeline. Once the business is running, you can get free and you can go build another one. And that's a lot of people are amazed at what I've done in a few years with our businesses and all the different things we have and all the teams I've built. And it's like you just kind of replicate the process and rebuild, and you take the money you've gotten winning from one and start investing it in the next thing. And the remarkable thing is that Ann and I are often live fairly broke as business owners because we're always kind of reinvesting everything into the next business, and eventually we just have this mountain of cash flow that you can do anything you want. But that's still a few more years for us.
Yeah, yeah. And you're talking about cash flow. You're talking about not necessarily assets, but just cash flow. And because
Yeah,
you want your money to start working for you. You
yeah.
don't want it just to sit there. Yeah.
It's like I don't want just a retirement account. I want an account that grows at hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. It's like that's what I want. And like, how do I build that? And if you follow the techniques of the rich, they do it. It's like I said before, it's not magic. It's just following a process of like continually investing in businesses, escaping the businesses and becoming investors, and then building the next business, and if you can do that a few times, you can build a lot of wealth in America. And honestly, um, I'm not, it's, as far as the world's concerned, it's easy to do this in America. It's also just easy not to. It's also really easy to watch, an entire season of, whatever show you're watching. That's easy in America, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
but it's
You
also
know,
easy to become a millionaire.
so you were talking about freedom. You were talking about freedom, and when you think about, when most people think about freedom, when it comes to their jobs, or maybe what you're searching for, what you're trying to work towards, a lot of people will think that freedom is just financial freedom, where you get to the point where all your bills are being paid and you can kind of do the things that you want to do. But really, freedom in the sense of what you and I are talking about really comes with time. When we get to the point where we have free time because we've gotten things taken care of, we're on top of our business, we're working on it instead of in it, and we're being able to make all of the major decisions and do those well, but all of the smaller decisions are being made by other people that are qualified, that you've put in place. Then that frees up a lot of time. And really, I see people get this backwards a lot, where I've seen people that are business owners, or at least self-employed, and maybe they own the business too, and they're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and they're working like a dog all the time, and they're really just chasing a dollar amount. They're chasing a dollar amount, and because their idea of freedom is, once I get to, whatever it is, I get to $1 million, then I can put my foot on the brakes, or I can coast. And maybe they're building and pushing to retirement, and then when retirement comes, they can kick back and just, now they have enough money they can coast. But the problem is, most people really never get there if that's what they think about. If they're just trying to create financial freedom, most people will never get there because they don't put an emphasis on their time freedom first.
Yeah, I love that. I love it how you're saying that, because like money really, it's just a claim on human labor. That is the simplest definition of money. And money, I've always said it's like this byproduct of serving people. It comes as we serve others. And so like you think about those two concepts. Well, the third concept of what money is really, money is just time. It's just time. It's like, since it's a claim on human labor, money is an amount of time. And so if Ann and I live on $100,000 a year, like let's say that's what we live on, and we make $100,000 a year, that means we have no time. We have no extra time. We can't take a 3-month vacation. You know what I mean? But if we make, an extra so much per year, well, then every year I'm getting an extra 3 months. But
Yeah,
see that equation's also based on what we live on. If we had lived on $50,000 a year, well, now I have 6 months stored up of time. You know what I mean?
right.
So like your money is really a time equation. And if we could see money as a time equation, it would actually help us so much. In fact, there's a film that came out where, instead of money in the future, everyone had like this clock on their arm. Have you seen this movie? I can't
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
what it's called. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah. With
And
Justin Timberlake.
yeah, and they're always trading time with her, but really it's an interesting concept, because that is ultimately what we're trading, and it's like it varies from person to person, like how fast their clock's moving, but like everyone is trading time. And it's an important thing to consider. It's like, because if I can live on less and I can make more, I'm adding time to my clock. I have more life ahead of me and more freedom ahead of me. And so it really, it's like, wealth is not about, how much money you have, because it's kind of like Scrooge McDuck putting his head on piles of gold under his pillow. It's like, instead of a pillow, it's like, that doesn't feel very comfortable. It's like, really you want money because you can trade it for time. You can get more time with your kids, more time with your grandkids, more time to do the things that you're passionate about, more time to have the impact that you want to have with your life. And you can share that with others as well. And so those are the unique aspects of money that really get me excited. And time is a commodity that we share equally. It's
Right.
You know,
Right.
and what's cool about it is I have more time right now than Bill Gates. You know, it doesn't matter how much money he has, he can't buy an extra actual day, you
Yeah.
know, in a
Yeah.
sense. You know, it's like,
I would say that anybody that wants to get really highly successful, I would say don't put your focus on maximizing your income or your money. Maximize your time.
yeah,
Maximize the amount of time. Make your time every minute worth the time, and then and shell off or push off all of the things that's not a good investment in your time. All of the time
it,
wasters, all those things, and that's how you gain time. You just chop off all the fat.
and then with that too, like one of the biggest wasters of your time is being an employee, because basically somebody else owns your time. And once you become a business owner and then an investor, you own your time. Like, you are not trading your time anymore for money. You're trading, you're basically trading either your knowledge and the decisions you make for money. That's a business owner. Or you're trading your money for more money as an investor. You're investing money, and that becomes exponential and turns into more money. And so you really want to be in those other quadrants where you're not trading time for money.
Right,
Uh,
right. It's kind of the difference between renting and owning a home. You rent, that money's gone. You buy a home, and you're building equity. Every payment you make, you're building equity in that home over and over and over, and it pays off down the road. Doesn't mean that there aren't some other expenses, but it's typically a fair bit less than rent. So,
yeah, and I'll never forget, the first guy that was teaching me this was a mentor of mine, and at the time, like, I was barely making $10 an hour with my time, as just a young kid. And I said, how much do you make per hour? And he says, well, I'm a business owner, but when I actually log my hours, I put them in at $250 an hour. And for me, my head like exploded. I was like, wow, $250 an hour, and you still think that you shouldn't trade time for money. Well, today, like when I bill more than that, more than $250 an hour. And I totally think that I don't like trading time for money. In fact, as I'm coaching, one of the things I do struggle with is that even though I'm paid a lot per hour, people pay me hundreds of dollars an hour to coach them, I'm still trading that time for money. And so what am I doing on the side? Well, I'm building other businesses. I'm building this epic treehouse resort in North Carolina, and I've got all of these properties that I'm building for adventure homes here in Colorado, and working on a really cool app that is going to revolutionize marriages, and a lot of you are going to want to get on your phone once we get it launched. And so I'm working on these other projects on the side as well, and so yeah, I am self-employed as a coach because I have to trade that time for money, but it's enough that it allows me to then take those resources and put them onto the other quadrants and continue to build businesses.
yeah, right. And so, the person that you were talking about before that, said his time was worth $250 an hour, or business coaches like yourself and I, it can look like a high dollar per hour, but really what it is it's a concentrated service. It's a concentrated, meaning when you involve yourself in coaching, you're getting some really really rich things that make a huge difference in your business, and that's what brings the value to that. It's not like
Yeah,
you and I are going and mowing somebody's grass. We could do that, but nobody's going to pay us very much, because the truth is you and I aren't going to be any better than that 17-year-old kid down the street. But with
right.
coaching, it's different. That 17-year-old kid down the street doesn't know how to coach. He doesn't know how to bring that big value. So really, it's that concentrated value that comes within those minutes
Yeah,
that's most important.
yeah. I mean, like there's been points this year in my coaching where in a 15-minute consult, like I've either saved a person I'm working with hundreds of thousands of dollars or made them hundreds of thousands of dollars, just helping them make the right decision at that time. And actually, I could list out many of those that I could see, and that my clients would sign off on. And I don't really call them clients; I call them superheroes. But it's that's the advantage of coaching. And there's never been a person who's gone to the Olympics, as it's the Olympic season right now, that has ever said, I just can't afford a coach. I'm really doing this on my own, and I don't think I need to spend all that extra money. Whereas really all of the leading gold medalists, every one of them goes out and gets the best coach that they can possibly find.
That's right. Yeah. Well, hey, Joe, this has been fun. This is really good stuff. So, just in review, we talked about employees and self-employees, owners, and investors. And so, check out the show notes afterwards and review. Listen to this again. Listen to it over and over. It's good stuff. So, hey, everybody, thanks. Subscribe, sign up, give us some comments, and we'll see you next time.